Niner. Making contact at point 003.
Welcome to Live Action Star Wars. I'm Ralph.
I'm James.
I did not bounce them out like I said I was going to. So today we're discussing the Rise of Skywalker. We're not doing it alone. Joining us from ABCDTOS, from Star Wars Minute, it's Pete the Rig Taylor and Star Wars author Riley Silverman. Thanks for joining us.
How you doing, guys?
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing all right. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah.
Who rewatched the Rise of Skywalker before this episode?
I watched.
Now,
yeah, I'm not fully at liberty to discuss how much of it I watched and in what increments I watched it in, but
I don't understand the concept of free time these days, and so
Yeah.
I wanted to watch it. I definitely had said to myself I should rewatch it before next week, and then I have not done that.
My free time is when I'm at work, so I was just like, yeah, I've got the time. I could just sort of have it on my phone just there. So it was good for that. Yeah.
I didn't realize it was 2 hours and 22 minutes. I didn't realize it was such a long movie.
Yeah, because it goes by so fast, and it's so easily
And
digestible.
so much happening.
It's almost in real time.
Yeah.
That's the thing I love about this movie. First and foremost, that the pacing is so nuts. The first time I saw it, my brain felt scrambled and I didn't know what I just witnessed. So now the rewatchability level of it's so great because my mind now knows what I've already processed it, and now I can just watch it and just enjoy it. And it moves at such a pace where I'm just like, cool. I'd rather do that than have lulls in the story. I am a huge fan of this movie, and I believe I'm in the minority.
I think
It's
we
very rare.
we group are in the minority. There are dozens of us.
You know what I think
love
about?
this
Yeah,
movie.
there are dozens of us. I think of there's an old Far Side cartoon that was the annual meeting of the Society of People Who Didn't Like Dances with Wolves, and it's like people in a corner, and they're in a huge banquet room, but it's just a small little support group in a corner. And there's and I think that group has probably grown a lot larger since that movie came out. But back in the day, it was very popular.
Yeah.
And there's someone like, and the cavalry scenes were just depicted with such, and it's like people arguing about little minute things in that movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm the reverse, where I'm part of the society of people who likes the Rise of Skywalker. We're
Yeah.
meeting in the
Yeah.
same banquet room.
Same. And it is, obviously, ironically, you use the term minority because there are legitimate arguments for why this shouldn't be, there are legitimate arguments for why people don't feel as excited about this movie.
Sure. Yeah.
In terms of, the treatment of characters and development or a lack of development of some characters. And yet I know I'm not discounting that, but also if I can approach the movie without that kind of
Without the baggage.
Without the I know I don't want to discount anybody else's appealing opinions or feelings about this, but I don't, I appreciate, I love Last Jedi, and I love this movie, and I love I'd love to see more from certain characters and other characters treated differently, relationships treated differently. But when all is said and done, this movie totally took me on a ride that I enjoyed from start to finish. So
Yeah.
I think that ride-
I would never
calling it
argue
a
that's
ride.
not. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go,
Sorry.
no, go.
I would say I would never argue that it's not a flawed film or that it doesn't have legitimate things to criticize. I think all of Star Wars does,
Sure.
and I think this is not immune to that. But I agree. Like I think that if I divorce it from my own expectations of what I thought was going to happen following The Last Jedi, I find myself very satisfied by this film, and I find that there are a lot more parallels and through lines from Last Jedi than I think it gets credit for. I think there's a lot of mentality of it didn't do the exact thing that I thought was going to happen for Last Jedi, so it just hated that movie. I'm like, I don't think that's true, personally.
right.
I completely agree. Yeah, I think ride is the best way to describe this film. It is a ride from start to finish, and it's a perk and a flaw. I think that the sort of 16-hour time frame that they put this film in is one of the things that I dislike about the film, but it also keeps it moving. Like there is no let up on it. And yeah, Riley, as you were saying, like I think because the sequel trilogy in general is a little bit disjointed, one to the next to the next, there isn't as much of a through line between them. It does feel like, oh, we were going left and now there was a hard right, and then we hard left again, like for the next film. But there are still those through lines. It's not things weren't just abandoned in between.
Yeah,
it does pick up threads that were left.
Right.
I took some notes, and I can see there's some stuff like that are I don't know when to have them open. There's some things where you're just like, oh, J.J. Abrams undid what Rian Johnson did, and there's three things that I used as sort of markers: is the reforged mask,
Right.
the reforged Skywalker saber,
Right.
and then going back to Rey's old hair.
yeah.
But I mean, it's like I don't like those stand out as J.J. Abrams going back to finish what he started in Episode 7 or whatever. But
Much like Kylo wanting to finish what Darth Vader started. Exactly.
Right.
yeah, and the but the whole dyad thing, like taking that concept of them talking and her touching the rein in The Last Jedi and amping that up to the next level.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
and Rian Johnson including that sort of communication in The Last Jedi built off of Luke and Vader talking to each other at the end of Empire Strikes Back. So I feel like it's a progression. And even when things are weird, force things are introduced, like this is the first time, well, when this movie came out earlier in the week, we saw Grogu use healing force abilities, and then in this movie we see the force healing abilities, which we haven't seen in any live action. I don't know if it happened in Clone Wars. I don't recall.
Not that I know of.
Not that I remember, no.
But I'm like, oh, and now they're introducing this new force thing. But I believe like every single movie has a new force thing introduced.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I will speak in
par.
defense of the force healing, of it being a thing that is in the like Jedi code book, like the book, it's like Jedi thing. And I think in my mind, and like my feeling about it is that Rey has been reading the ancient text in between the two movies. And I think that's the thing that people are like, oh, so Rey just somehow tapped into a magic that all these powerful Jedi is never used. And in my mind, it's that they weren't reading this book that had, like, they had forgotten these things over time. And like, because of the way that like ritual and pomp and circumstance had like taken over the Jedi Order, which had led to Palpatine's ability to topple them, like a lot of things were forgotten, and this like very natural basic idea of like channeling your force into somebody else to heal them had been lost to centuries. But Rey's not influenced by any of that because she never went through that exact training process. She's mostly learned from a couple of days with Luke on a rainy Irish beach, and also from a book that she's been reading. That's an ancient text, and that's in my mind, like Rey's Jedi training is different than 99% of Jedi training that we've seen on screen.
Yeah,
that's it. She's the first person to read those books in generations. Like Luke couldn't even get through them. Like Yoda sort of says, like they're not page turners. These things are dull. But she had nothing else to go on, so she was digging into them. She was desperate. And
I kind of like this is 100% headcanon here. I just realized, by the way, I have my Grogu coffee mug today. I didn't realize that I just grabbed a mug. But we
got Greedo.
There's the whole
Kentucky sticker.
I imagine that Rey, being someone growing up on Jakku, loving ships and like being super tech focused, she's probably spent a lot of time analyzing tech manuals. So for her, this very dry book about like force usage and stuff like that probably appeals to her. Like that's 100% fan canon, but that it makes like there's a lot of things that people think are indications that Rey is OP or whatever. That in my mind, I'm like, no, there's 100% tracks with her experience and what she's doing with her life. And
totally.
People used to say the same about Mara Jade. It's like Star Wars are always going to find that woman to complain about. Unfortunately, it just seems to be the way.
Yeah.
The thing I really liked in this viewing was Palpatine talking about cheating death. which mirrors the Darth Plagueis speech in Episode 3.
Totally.
I'm not
And
familiar.
if he's
Was there a story?
Have you ever heard?
But her being a Palpatine, him being able to cheat death and have these crazy dark powers, and her being a Palpatine lineage and being able to force heal, kind of plays into that a little bit, and I kind of like that. I kind of like that he's able to cheat death and she's able to heal, and Pete's
Now,
God.
This is something I'm most likely going to bring up from time to time on the next season of our show, because we are going to be talking about this movie, but I am still not 100% convinced that she actually is a Palpatine, and that it's not just more mind games, which is,
Unreliable narrator.
because it's like
Palpatine will do anything to manipulate.
Exactly.
This was the first time that I was watching this through, and you can take or leave books as much as you want. Not saying anything about books. Like, I love them, I read them all. Riley writes some of them. But this was my first time watching this since reading Shadows of the Sith by Adam Christopher there, which does dig into like the backstory of Rey's parents and the clone son of Palpatine, who's her father and things. So if you want to go into like everything as canon, then she definitely is a Palpatine. But up until that, like, I was with you, Pete. Like, I was like, it's all a story. Like, it's from a certain point of view, sort of thing. It's like I mean,
go back, look at Obi-Wan's original, like, he was a pupil of mine until he turned evil, and he betrayed and murdered your father. It's like, it's kind of true almost.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was.
It
was very true when he said it. It just got changed.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything changes.
There's wiggle room, is all I'm saying.
Books can be changed.
Let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
Right. Yeah.
I told this to my wife Stevie last night.
Who agrees with me? You saw the little thing.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the over explanation of Star Wars, so I tend not to read the books. I read the Thrawn trilogy in the 90s because that's all I had Star Wars wise. But it didn't over explain anything in the past. I mean, we had something like 20 years before George explained the Clone Wars, like, as far as the movies go. And so with this, a lot of folks will complain about, like, maybe some characters didn't get, mentioned or got kind of set aside. But I mean, you don't need so much explanation, especially when it comes to things like when the famous line, somehow Palpatine's returned.
Right.
Like, for me, that's like a Flash Gordon simplification, like, explanation of, like, that doesn't need to be explored. If you want to know more about that, just wait for the books. And right now, with the Mandalorian and the Bad Batch, and I'm assuming some books, that's all being explained, because I watched the first season of the Bad Batch, and Omega saw like a tube with like a Snoke in it. And in Mandalorian season 2, I believe, Pershing, who has the Camino stuff on him, is definitely doing stuff, and it sounds like they're using Grogu's midichlorians to.
They're going to fill in that gap. They're definitely.
So I would have loved that gap to have been in the movie, and like that is. I mean, like, yes, I don't think that's an unfair criticism. I also think your point is very valid, that anything left unanswered in Star Wars will get answered, because that content is God, and whatever you can do to fill in content, people will do. But yeah, I do think. I mean, look, people talk about like how they would remake a movie or something like that, and I think that if I had the chance to remake Rise of Skywalker, I probably wouldn't change any plot points. I would just break it into 2 movies, and I would have Palpatine's return happen at the very end of the first movie, and then that would be the villain of the next movie, and let like episode 10 be the capper for the entire trilogy, and let episode 9 be the capper for. I mean, let episode 10 be the capper for the whole saga, and let 9 be the capper for just that trilogy.
Right.
But that's the only thing that I would do is give more space for things from that trilogy to breathe, and then give more space for things from the saga to breathe as its own separate thing, but still following the same plot points and beats.
I think all 3, I mean, especially Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, they have that sort of tight time frame put on them, and it's defined. Like this one, it's 16 hours is that's all we've got, and then it's game over. And that's always bugged me. Last Jedi has a similar thing because of the slow moving chase.
Right.
And I think both of those movies, they are a negative to their films. And yeah, so if you split it into two or did something, you eliminate that time frame. It can still be, and there can still be urgency without having to have it defined by a set really short amount of time. I think about that 16 hours and I'm like, I do 12-hour night shifts. Like, I couldn't have got all the stuff that they just did, like, and everywhere that they just went it done in 16 hours. And I'm just like,
Well, maybe you should have hyperspace.
Do they?
I
Yeah,
mean,
really.
Yeah. I should just get off.
Do they say it's 16 hours?
Yeah.
Where does it say that?
Yeah.
So it's like the Palpatine returns. Everyone gets distracted by that line, and then I think
That
Poe's
briefing.
just like, yeah.
They're basically like, all right, well, everything, they're going to attack the galaxy in 16 hours, so we got to get on it.
Yeah.
Oh, I
You
don't
think about the
I
size of that
noticed.
fleet at the end, like if they
Right.
managed to rally all those guys, like that's.
Did they say it?
Maybe
Did
like
they say it while
sleep,
June?
like-
Did they say it while Junior was on screen? Because
Yeah, he's distracting.
like people
Yes.
talk about Babu Frick being like the big deal, but I gotta say I really like Junior.
Junior
Yeah.
and Claude, and there's so many little
Claude
things like that
is
in this movie that I'm like, yeah,
Love Claude.
yeah.
Super cute.
And
Um,
I mean everything, the all the different places we go, the designs of the creatures and the locations, I'm all just like, oh yeah,
A
yeah,
lot
yeah.
of planets.
Yeah.
There's a lot of planets, but and not even the light speed skipping, but just overall, like Kajimi and
Mhm.
the
I was
other
shocked
one.
when I was watching it the other night. That, it's when they get to Pasana.
Sorry, Ralph, you trailed off there. Did you want to say that name of that planet again? It feels like you trailed off in the middle of saying it. I know you really wanted to get it out.
Dakar. Is it Dakar?
That's in Force Awakens.
Dakar?
Right.
What's is it? What's the one that is happened to be celebrating the same anniversary of the original Star Wars?
Pasana.
Pasana.
Yeah.
Pasana.
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 I was,
and then
I was shocked.
Exegol and
Yeah.
Exegol and Endor's a different mood of Endor, and yeah.
But then we see our OG Moon of Endor as well. Like at the end, it's
There's the forest moon of Endor and there's the Irish shoreline moon of Endor. They love Irish. They love Nordic vibes.
Yeah. But we saw all of that, and yet Pasana was 25 minutes into this film. Like it's really early on, and
Yeah.
it feels like so much has happened, even to the point by the
Because it has.
It has. It's just non-stop. The movie is just rolling. Like Pete, you said you guys have got this coming up with Star Wars Minute as your next one. It's like there's not going to be any downtime in this one. I don't think. Like that, you guys often have like 5-10 minute sequence where you're like, all right, well, this is a quite a nice time for you to chat to the guest and things. And I'm just like, there's so much plot in this movie.
There's a lot of things happening
Yeah.
all the time. We won't run out of things to talk about, I don't think. But
For sure.
No, I
We'll
think
see.
you'll be all right.
yeah.
I mean, I know you're not really supposed to say, but how are things going over there? Is it fairly positive?
I like the movie a lot more than Alex does. I'll say that.
I think we've, based on context clues over the last couple of years, I think we've figured that out.
Yeah. So it's an interesting approach this season. We'll
Do you find
See how it
yourself
goes.
being defensive? Are you on the defensive, or is it? I mean,
yes, but I also, I like we just said, like no Star Wars movie is without criticism, and I'm not going to be blind to any criticisms of it. And I'll point out things that I don't really, that don't really work for me, but none of them are like a derailment. You know what I mean? Like even
right.
in most of the movies that I really like from Star Wars, there's things that I'm just like, I kind of wish that wasn't in there. And they're not a lot of that. They're minor things, kind of more towards the end, that I don't really dig as much in this movie. But
Like a thing that happens over the course of 1 minute isn't going to derail something that you've loved for the last 46 years.
Right.
It's
Well, that's a good mentality to have, because a lot of people don't have that mentality. A lot of people will find
It's
the 1 minute
crazy.
they hated, and it will ruin everything they've ever loved or anything ever.
That's it. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, it's a long movie. It's 2.5 hours long, but that 2.5 hours isn't going to ruin my entire enjoyment of everything else. Even if I didn't like this movie, it still wouldn't take away from everything else that's come before it. Like, it's all still there. And
I spent almost the majority of my life loving 3 movies, and that's all there was.
Yeah.
3
I
Men
didn't
and a
think I was
Baby,
going to get
Jack, and Benjamin Button. I don't know. I'm
There you
trying to think of the most.
weird.
Right.
I don't know why I went from Jack
Different
to Benjamin
life
Button. I was
cycles.
like old man, young person. I guess. Yeah.
he really likes that trope.
Right.
Yeah.
Big was the
Fish
the
called
other
Wanda.
Fish.
Mac and me.
Right. And Police
My
Academy
brain
2.
can't even think
Yeah.
of
Loves Bobcat Goldthwait. Big fan.
but
bring that
so
guy
like
back.
everything for me is gravy. Like everything's like extra. Even the prequels, even when I was like, oh, whatever, I still love these 3 movies over here. But now when we get Star Wars like 3 times a year, 12 hours at a time, it's like, if you don't like this thing, go be happy about a different thing, because there's one just around the corner. In 2 weeks, we're going to be covering the 3rd season of a Star Wars TV show. I never thought in my life there would be a Star Wars TV show.
No,
Yeah.
especially after how many
a
like
handful
failed
of them.
starts they had. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Like there was always they were trying, and nothing was ever happening. It was like it's a pipe dream. It's never going to actually happen. And now, as you said, we've got tons of them. We're on season 3 of one of them. We're getting a 2nd and 3rd season of other things. Like,
Although,
it's
yeah, it really did. I mean, not to derail the conversation into a whole different thing.
That's fine.
That really, like, the whole thing had to, the whole paradigm had to change. Like, if at any point before then they had done a live action Star Wars TV show on a network, broadcast network thing, I think it could have derailed Star Wars. And
I agree.
It's
It
the
could have made
budgets
it.
they would have had available and the access they would have had available would not have made for a good show.
Yeah.
Like, it would have been
And-
like a-
Unless it was post Lost.
Right.
Although-
Like if it was post Lost,
Even then,
maybe.
Having said that too, I think that like Andor proves that you can actually tell an incredibly good Star Wars TV show with
But-
less budget than other Star Wars projects. So.
But I think that's the thing. Like, it's going to take a network to be brave enough to do a show like Andor, and it would have been like an HBO or Showtime in the mid 2000s or something like.
Totally.
And I can't see them at the time being interested in it.
Yeah.
If they were, then yeah, we might have got an Andor, but I don't think George was interested in doing that at the time because he wanted to make his serials. And then everything else, it was just, I'm glad that we've got to the point. I'm glad that we've got to a point now, and like you see all this stuff about Disney Plus losing money and how they're pulling back on things releasing and stuff, but it's like they're doing
Probably
fine.
not Star Wars. I think Star
Yeah,
Wars is
and
plowing forward.
when Bob Iger, I think, just recently said, he's like, we're doubling down on the things that work for us. Yeah, we might slow down and release schedules. I think Kevin Feige came out and said we're not going to do as many shows a year, but we're going to focus on quality.
Yeah.
Perfect. Like, I want that. If we only got one show a year, I'd be happy because,
Right.
like, if it's as good as Andor was, great. Give me that every year, once a year. Fine.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Totally.
Yeah.
Speaking of Lost and J.J. Abrams in this movie, there's not a lot I don't like about it. There's a couple things that I do raise my eyebrows. The one being this secret challenge coin that allows you to go on Star Destroyers or something. I don't know what that is. I don't understand. The one that Zori gives to Poe. Every time I watch him, like I don't think I understand what that is.
I don't
Is
know
it in
why
the
it had
books?
to be the particular. No, I don't think it needed to be like the particular design it was. If it was like a code cylinder, like that she'd maybe lifted off of an Imperial officer or something,
Right.
it would have sort of seemed to fit better. But the idea of it, I quite like the basically the get out of jail free card, the get in anywhere card. But
Yeah.
it's the way that it's got that design, and then just so happens that the ship they're on has a particular slot for it. I'm just like, does every ship have that? They're just unused all the time.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that comes
actually-
down to like the
Your
thing
car
about-
has one too. If you look
Yeah.
under the dash,
Yeah.
you just pull a little
that's
thing.
what that
and it's-
is.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
man, I've always
Yeah.
wondered.
It's actually a cigarette lighter, and you just plug it into that.
Yeah.
I think that it's funny that we still call it cigarette lighter, even though most cars only use it now to charge our iPhones.
Yeah,
But-
right.
USB.
But yeah, I think that like that's kind of like a throwback to the fact that Star Wars as a universe, as a galaxy, really doesn't have digital things. It only has analog things. So every kind of hacking or code breaking has to be like a physical object that gets inserted into something and sliced. And I think that as a result of that, they seem to keep wanting to do new and interesting things with whatever they're using for that, to try to move towards that a little bit, which I think is really fun and interesting. You know, that's why you have like gigantic droids that their purpose is literally to crack codes and break codes and do algorithms and stuff like that, because you don't have like people walking around with iPads or iPhones in the Star Wars universe.
It would be great if it was like, all right, well, I can give you this code thing, and it was like a giant, like awkward. It was like the size of like a Betamax. Like,
It's the
Plug this
stolen
in.
data tapes, isn't it?
yeah,
It's-
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Which God,
like the again, minor things that I can always it could have been done better or differently, but
Yeah,
not enough
like,
to derail me.
oh, we're gonna call this thing the Wayfinder instead of a holocron, like that kind of thing. It's like you guys might be putting too much of a hat on a hat at some points in this, but yeah, overall,
I
I
like.
still don't mind it. I like it, but I think
the
like
Wayfinder.
I think it's cool, but I think it's just an example of like we took a thing that already existed and we gave it a different name, and it's like
I agree.
like, okay.
So
I mean, by the time we get to Rogue One, people have forgotten everything about Jedi and Sith. So here we are, 30 years after Star Wars. So maybe they just
that's fair.
That's what it was called. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Plus, I mean,
it
it behaves
be.
differently, right? This is basically just like it's like a
It's like a
it's
cube
like
of
a
knowledge.
it's like a goth homing beacon. It's not.
I think the
like
fact that it looks
it's a good-
exactly like the Sith holocrons you buy at Galaxy's Edge is why,
Right.
and like the ones from Rebels. I think
Right.
that's why I'm thinking of it that way. Because I'm like,
It's like a GPS. It's like a
change
carbon.
the design a little bit. Then I don't know.
So this
I like the
film,
concept of it.
I knew
Execution.
quite a bit, like not details, but I knew a lot of the stuff visually that we were going to see in this film. A friend of mine was working in the editorial department, but just working on dailies. So he was seeing a lot of raw footage, no context for any of it, and no audio. So, and at this point in time, he was just like, he sort of like, whatever, I'll tell you whatever, because you're not going to like start telling people online or doing anything. And so he would tell me these things. And he was like, yeah, and it like, Kylo Ren, I don't know how it's going to translate on screen, but like he goes and sees this big baby head on a spider, and he described the thing that was cut from the movie, like that was all shot, and he described it as like it's super weird to get this like pyramid triangular thing, and I was like, a holocron, a Sith holocron, right? Like it's definitely going to be a Sith holocron. Wow, cool, they're doing that. And he was describing all of that in detail, so. Until like literally I walked into this movie, I was expecting it to be a Sith holocron. And I was talking to some other people before the film came out who they'd read some stuff, they knew some people, whatever. And they were like, yeah, it's like a Wayfinder or things like that. And I'm like, you mean the holocron that's in the movie? Like I've essentially seen it, the visuals of it. But then they went, no, it's not, it's different. So that's fine. And the other thing was the Hux being the traitor, and the whole shot of him saving the day. Like I knew that. I knew about Palpatine like a year and a half before this film came out, and it was like, wow, that's really interesting stuff, and it piqued my interest. So I think going into this film, even things that people didn't like somehow Palpatine returned, I was like, yeah, I've had that in my head for a year and a half at this point. Like somehow he returned. I actually don't care how he returned now because he's here. He's back.
They announced that at Celebration. We all knew that. We all watched it happen.
That was
at Celebration. Everyone was so excited, like when Ian was on stage and they played the clip again and all that kind of stuff. And it was like, oh my god, Palpatine's gonna be back. It's gonna be a cool thing. And then when the movie came out, everyone acted like none of us had that information, and it was a sudden shift that came out of nowhere and was like, oh, they had to force him into this movie. It's like you knew for almost a year that he was gonna be in this movie. It wasn't a secret.
It tells you
his laugh is in the trailer. Like it's there.
It tells you in the opening crawl.
It's in the crawl. Like, it's right there.
When I saw it in the crawl, I'm like, okay, good. They're not messing around. Like that.
Exactly.
Like, since I already know this information, I'm just like,
why waste time?
Don't make it a mystery in the
deprive
movie.
the world of such a fun meme. I mean, like let's not act like memes didn't make the prequel movies 10 times better. Like I think like it's okay for there to be ridiculous moments in these movies that make for great memes. So that's my feeling about it.
Can I say?
Go for it.
I'm going to completely change the subject. So if you have something to go off,
sure.
go.
We're still going to Rise of Skywalker, though, right?
Yeah. So completely change the subject.
But I can't remember it now. I'm sure it will come back to me.
I was going to say that this is probably for me the best C-3PO since Return of the Jedi.
Oh yeah, definitely C-3PO. This is definitely the best C-3PO since. Yeah.
I agree with that. Not even. I think it's not even up for debate. I think
it's the first time he's had
I kind of hate
anything to
C-3PO most of the time, so the fact that I liked him in the movie says a lot.
But he's great. He's one of the best parts of the movie, I think, and definitely is. But I'd say even I would say better than Return of the Jedi, maybe.
Okay.
Return of the Jedi
I
has
I was going to say, were you going to
I'm-
go Empire? Were you going to go?
I'm biased
could
by
see that.
his. I do love his recap of Star Wars in Return of the Jedi enough
Yeah.
to like give that a
Yeah,
pretty high
that's
edge.
true.
But I would say, as far as consistently throughout the whole film being fun to watch, I think this is definitely 3PO's best movie. But I think that his best
Yeah, I think
moment
3PO
is that moment in Jedi.
3PO in Jabba's palace and 3PO recounting Star Wars are great, but like the rest of him on Endor, I could do without. Like, yeah.
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 But yes, good to see him. Get
One of
stuff
the best
to do
lines.
and good stuff. Fed good lines, fed good. Yeah.
It felt like a gift for Golden Tony to be able to like
Right.
do this in the last one. It's like you've been the one through line through all of this. Like
there is
go, just
one
go cook basically.
Yeah.
Like go do your thing.
There is one joke that I thought for sure was coming and then didn't, and I was kind of disappointed. Like, things talking about expecting a thing and not getting it and being sad is that when they made the comment about like R2 having 3PO's database like it saved as a backup, I was expecting him to install it, and then 3PO's last line would be like, "Wait, Anakin Skywalker built me." Like that would be the very last thing he said in the movie. like somehow he would remember all the stuff that had been wiped from the Clone Wars. Like somehow it was all still alive and active on R2. Like that would have been such a great way to wrap the whole like arc of that up. But you know, it is what it is. It's a lot of things happening in that movie that would have been a little bit too much to shove into it. But I was like, that's gonna. I said it to my friend in the theater, like they're gonna restore his memory, and he's gonna remember that Anakin built him. It's gonna be a whole thing.
Now, side note, I know where this is live action Star Wars, but if you guys all like Star Wars stuff, so if anybody hasn't watched Droid Tales, the Lego Droid Tales cartoons,
I haven't. I still haven't. Yeah.
It's exactly that. Basically, like starts out like at the end of it's the party at the end of Return of the Jedi, and they're like C-3PO's like, yeah, it's too bad my memory is erased. And R2-D2 is like, wait, I have a backup, and just like USB thumb drive plugs it into the back of him. He like boots up like a Mac and retells all of the whole story of everything, and it's fantastic.
I'll have to watch that then. I like
with
that.
a lot of jokes.
Yeah, of course.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid.
What did you guys? That was it. I had it. It's gone again. Don't worry about
Babu Freak.
No, it was. I think it was a bit before
Hey.
Babu Frick. Super Hard's here. Just he's mentioning things. I think it's either things that he really likes or doesn't like. But Sinking Fields, I think he's mentioning there as something that he didn't like. They were mentioned in The Force Awakens on Jakku, like stay away from the sinking fields. So it was like, okay, she's gonna recognize them. She's gonna know what they are. The placement in the shot seemed a little bit weird, like where it's just like you've got all of this desert and then just exactly where they land, there's some sinking fields. But whatever. Like
I like it. I feel like this is. I feel like the most serial like Star Wars movie since George Lucas worked on it, and I feel like Episode 1 and Episode 2 are really good serials, and I think people might not have liked those movies that much, and so he went a little bit more serious, and it was less of a serial for Episode 3. But I feel like this really feels like a serial, and what's something in every serial that hasn't happened in Star Wars yet, and it's like quicksand.
Yeah.
Like let's do quicksand, and it's like it took Indiana Jones 4 movies to put in quicksand.
But there's only 3.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the newest one coming out? Because I don't want spoilers for that style.
You guys want to talk about Crystal Skull for a second?
No,
I'm all right.
never.
All right. Here's the thing: like I acknowledge it. Like I know people like to acknowledge it, and it makes sense.
I got so yelled at when I made that "there's only 3 movies" joke when the 5th trailer first dropped. Someone was like, "Everyone worked on that movie." I'm like, "They're fine. They've been paid. It's okay.
Right.
They know what they made. They know what they did."
Yeah. But yeah, I like that serial film. I'm fine with the sinking fields. I'm fine with the dagger, as weird as it is,
I like
and
the
as
dagger.
Goonies as it is. Also,
The dagger is in that book a lot. Like that book is like that dagger is like the main MacGuffin of that entire book.
That's why I don't like the books, is because they put importance on stuff that maybe doesn't need to be put in. That's just me. You guys, listen, I have nothing against Star Wars books. I especially enjoy books about Tatooine and Life Day Advent calendars.
They're the best books.
Those are amazing. Those are the best
great.
books.
Yeah,
those are really great. Yeah.
Everyone should go and get them.
But I like that they're there. I like that the books are there so that James can inform me on cool Star Wars stuff that I don't have to spend the time.
my Star Wars book taste, aside from obviously picture books about Tatooine or artifacts from Batu and Life Day books, is I tend to like Star Wars books that aren't set during the main stories. I like Star Wars books that tell different stories. I love the High Republic and stuff like that, because I like books that let me explore the universe without necessarily feeling like I have to read these books to understand. Having said that, I think Shadows is very good and Adam's awesome, so I'm a fan of that.
I agree. Like the High Republic are my favorite Star Wars books in a long time. They're fantastic, but there are the novels. There are some books that feel like they are explainers just for the sake of being an explainer book to fill in some details and stuff. The old EU had a ton of them, and like I can see why if you haven't read it, Shadows would feel like that, because it's like the filling in a lot of those gaps and stuff. Super Hans here again asks what Lando is doing on Pisana. It's in there. Like you find out it's all of that.
He says
stuff
it in the movie though, right?
But yeah, he's looking for his daughter, right? Like,
I also feel like if this is not the movie to start being like, I can't believe how many coincidences there are in Star Wars. Like, there's a certain point where it's like,
That's true,
yeah, there is. Yeah, Yoda's on Kashyyyk and Chewbacca happens to be there. Like,
that's it. Yeah. It's full of coincidences. It's a silly movie based on serials and stuff like that. So they always have been. And yeah, the book, like that one in particular, it could feel like an explainer if you've not read it, but yeah, sure. It explains a lot of stuff, but it's done so well. It's a really fun and engaging read, and it's a really good standalone story that has lots of good Luke and Vader, Lando.
Yeah. Very similar. He's hard to confuse.
Right, yeah.
Oh, they're basically the same character.
They were in a room together once, so they're hard to confuse.
They were, yeah.
It's true.
They like dinner.
Or not, as it turns out.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think they sat down and ate.
I think they had dinner.
Yeah.
Vader
he like turns his head and like shoves food through his little thing.
Right.
He was like, I'm not Mandalorian, whatever, I'm gonna eat.
Like the Invisible Man, where he holds up a handkerchief in front of him.
Gross.
He makes two troopers do it, and then he murders them afterwards because they saw part of his face.
Yeah.
So there's loads of good stuff in there. It's worth checking out, but it's not essential. And if these are things that people get hung up on in this film, like I get it. It's the one movie that I won't try and fight back on anyone, or I won't try and like dissuade or even explain other people's criticisms. Like if people have things in The Last Jedi that they don't like, I will sort of be like, but have you thought about it in this point of view? I'll because I really like that film, and I think there's a lot in there that like does get like misinterpreted. But then in this one, I'm just like, there are things that probably aren't great, but it's a lot of fun if you just go along for the ride. It's a lot of fun. I'll never try and dissuade anyone's negative reactions to this one.
I find that a lot of the criticism of The Last Jedi is a little bit more founded in bad faith, whereas I think a lot of the criticism of Rise of Skywalker, I think, is sincere. I don't always agree with it, and I think similarly, like I'm like, well, yes, from that angle, I understand why you feel that way. I don't feel that way, but I also like. I kind of have the mentality of like, you know the phrase "let people like things." I think you can also let people not like things, and I think it's okay. Sure. And like, I hate. The only thing I would wish people would stop doing, I would like to be able to enjoy Rise of Skywalker and be able to be allowed to appreciate it. Yes. And it gets frustrating whenever I'm talking about Star Wars that somebody has to jump in my comments to dog on a movie that I actually very much like. So because it frustrates me when people do that to me, I try not to do the opposite. So if people are tweeting about how much they dislike it, I'm not going to jump and reply and go, well, you're wrong, and here's why. Like, yeah, like you are allowed to not like it. I'm allowed to like it. I would like to be able to like it in peace, so I will let you not like it in peace. Like, again, like
no one is ever wrong for an opinion. Like, it's ridiculous to think that people can be wrong for an opinion on a movie. Like,
and I'm not saying all criticism of Last Jedi is bad faith, but I'm saying there is a lot of bad faith criticism.
Yeah,
about
a lot
Last
of it
Jedi.
comes from that. Yeah, I've been testing that. That exact same feeling of like, well, just like, like, yes, I'm not going to like argue with you about your feelings about stuff, but I think 2 people that I know who are huge Star Wars fans who really did not care for Andor And I've been talking to them about it and just like talking through, not being like, no, you're wrong, being like, wait, what? Interesting. What doesn't work for you? Like,
Have a
I'm
discussion about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not shaming you. I just want to know, like, why do you like this but not this? Like, and it's been an interesting experience.
And that I think is more of like a constructive conversation. Like I think it's when you start trading barbs on Twitter is where it begins to be like.
Well, Twitter is where everything.
Yeah. I'm
feel
very
like I
different
want
in how I
something-
talk about movies and shows in person than when I'm talking about it in text and limited characters with an army of assholes ready to jump on you no matter what you're doing. So.
I wish there was some sort of medium between Andor and Mandalorian, because Mandalorian's.
I think it's called Obi-Wan. I think it's
It might be. It might be.
I think it existed.
Because the thing is with Mandalorian, I enjoy it, and same with like Book of Boba Fett. I enjoy it. I'm like, okay, this is fun. It's like just eating candy.
Yeah.
Playing with action figures. Yeah.
You sit down for like a Thanksgiving dinner of Andor, where it's just like there's a lot here, and it's all really good stuff, but it might be a little too heavy for me. I need like a good, just like sandwich. It's really good. I don't need the junk food. I don't need the meal. I just want a sandwich. And probably Obi-Wan is that. Yeah. Because I did enjoy the story. I did enjoy that sort of that thread that kind of like going through the storyline and making sure not to topple anything over from the prequels or from Star Wars, and then just them able to do that. And it was a little, things were teetering a little bit. It's almost like the game Operation. Like they were like, okay, don't touch the sides. Here's episode 3. Here's episode 4. Don't touch the sides. And sometimes it would start to go, but I feel like ultimately they figure that out. And I
pulled out a lightsaber right out of that.
and then put it back in the sand.
Right.
Yeah. They put it back in the sand. Speaking of which, we get 2 lightsabers in the sand at the end of this movie, at which it just struck me this time like how great that was for me, and that's me trying to put in symbolism.
I do too. I'm a big fan of that scene.
At the end of The Last Jedi, Rey moves these giant boulders, and it's a big statement of the movie. And in this one, she's moving tiny little sand.
She's still moving rocks, though. It's like
rocks. I was like, oh, that's kind of sweet. I kind of like that imagery of her using the Force to move millions of grains of sand. Like the Jedi isn't all about the cool things like bringing down a Star Destroyer with the Force in a video game. Like it's not all about that. Mm-hmm. It's also these like quiet moments.
I prefer if it was less about that.
I agree. I think those big grandiose moments of Force usage. Yeah. They're just like, all right, if you can do that, then why is this happening? Why is that happening? I think
why didn't Obi-Wan run fast out of the rocks in the Obi-Wan series? Where's his fast running skills go? But again, like, oh my god,
his knees are gone, Obi-Wan. He's been on a planet in the sun working hard for like 19 years, man. His knees are gone.
That was what's so great about that series was it's like he lost his faith.
Yeah, he's broken. He's broken.
Like,
that was the best bits of that show. Yeah, definitely. I just want to say hi to Tommy the Duck, who stumbled in here completely by accident. Tommy the Duck, welcome to the live stream. What do you think of the Rise of Skywalker? When we announced that we were doing this, one of our regular viewers was just like, "Oh, you're gonna get some hate watches on this one," like because there are so many people that hate this film. And I think for the most part, people seem to be like at least enjoying the conversation. So if you have just stumbled in, if you are joining us, we do go a bit early. Tommy's saying that we always go too early. So it's nice that we can do a little bit of a different time because we got some guests.
This is, by the way, we're in California. This is later than normal for us.
9 a.m. is late for us, but it's not. It's nice.
So we're talking about things being explained. There was something that was explained to me. I did not pick it up on the first 3 viewings. That is probably one of my favorite moments in this movie. And that's and I don't know why I didn't get it the first 3 times I saw it in the theater. Is when Han Solo says, "I know." Like
Yeah.
like
I love
it
it.
didn't even occur to me what
I-
the line was before that, and I have no idea why it flew over my head.
I love it.
Like
Mhm.
like I just assumed that Kylo was thinking he was sorry. But me being a dum-dum, not thinking about the scene in Cloud City, watching this now every single time that he says I know, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is
Yeah.
amazing.
It's perfect. I
Such a good
I cry
moment.
every time. I don't think there's been a single time that I've watched this film and knowing it's coming. Like as soon as he says, "Hey kid," my eyes ball. Like, and I think
Yeah.
it's coming from a child of a dead dad mentality. I'm
100%.
sure of it.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's every time it just hits so hard.
My father had passed away only about a month and a half before this movie came out. My
Oh, man.
dad died early November of that year. I had somehow managed to go unspoiled for Han Solo's return throughout
I don't think
all
I
of
knew.
it.
I
And
didn't.
so in the
I hoped.
theater, the second I heard "Hey kid," I
Oh,
burst into tears. Like I think honestly, like I think very like honestly, I can say that on a subconscious level, that's part of why I love this movie so much.
Yeah.
And that I think that like while a lot of other people might hate on it, this movie gave me this because not only because the week that my dad died when I was home in Ohio for the funeral was when Disney Plus launched. And so like in between going to memorials and dealing with stuff, I sat down in a chair and I watched Mandalorian. And when Grogu popped up at the end, it blew my mind. And I was like, it gave me this one little moment of joy in the middle of like the worst week of my life and like reminded me of how important Star Wars has always been to me and like what it gives me. So then to have that capped off with this moment not long after of like a child getting to talk to their dead father and like saying things they want to say,
yeah.
like it is very hard for me to pull that subjectivity away from this movie. And it is 100%. I will biasly say like I will fight to death this movie partly because of that scene.
Absolutely, like it's
Yeah.
I couldn't have said it any better. My dead dad story was like 99, just before Phantom Menace released, so that will always hold that because the build up is something that I shared with him and then never got to share the movie with him. So very similar sort of thing, but yeah, the entire scene, the way it plays out as a mirror to their last scene when he kills Han, and the tweaks, the subtle changes and stuff, and it's the thing that makes me go, oh no, it is really nice to have JJ back for that moment alone. Even if someone else made this movie, if they got him in to do that scene or something, like it works very, very, very well. And the fact that Han's last line, Harrison Ford's last line in Star Wars was "I know," which we all know the behind the scenes context of it. He wanted to go out on that in Empire. Like he wanted to go out on that in 1980. He wanted that to be his end. So getting to have that and his little smirk that he has,
this is watching
great.
it this time. This is the first time where I didn't think of him as Harrison Ford. Like for some reason, watching it last night, I was like, "That's Han Solo." Like that's the guy. He looks like Han Solo to me, and he's always looked like even in Force Awakens, he looked like Harrison Ford to me, just old Harrison Ford. It was like that's not Han Solo. That's how I've known.
I agree
Harrison
with that.
Ford
I
for the
very
last
much
so
like
many
Harrison
years,
Ford
but-
showed up for that movie and was Harrison Fording his way across space. But I think I know what you're saying, and I think I agree with you on that.
Yeah,
I mean,
and-
I see Han Solo when he's singing Sugar Ray in a car. Like,
but the other thing is the whole Leia of it all.
yeah.
Right.
And her inclusion into the movie. Somebody asked it earlier. I think James, you
Yeah,
started.
I think
if you wanna
it was
grab
Super
that.
Hans. Yeah.
But it was one of those questions, like they said, like Glenn Close was going to take over, or they were just saying like all kinds of weird stuff.
I would have liked the symmetry of. I think we talked about this on our, or maybe I haven't talked about this. Yeah, but
you'll most likely bring it up.
I'm
in a
sure
future
it'll
episode
come
of-
I would have liked the symmetry purely on a behind the scenes rhyming level of Meryl Streep taking over.
Oh, that's
which
what
they
it was.
mentioned because
Oh yeah, that's fun.
because she
like
played Carrie Fisher's character basically in Postcards from the Edge. So like if she's playing basically a Carrie Fisher
Right.
in that, then to have her back and play in this, but I don't know. It
I
would have been
think-
too weird. It would have been too distracting.
It would.
no
I
matter what.
think especially with the okay, it'd been a couple of years, but like it was still fresh for everyone having lost Carrie and the way that we did and the suddenness of it. and knowing that this movie was written to have a lot more of her in it. It was originally written and designed to have a lot more of her in it. It would have been great. Circumstances changed. Obviously, they had to roll with what they had. I don't have a problem with them reusing the footage of her because everyone involved gave their okay. Like her daughter's there in scenes with her, and
playing her in scenes.
Exactly.
The body double,
and she's great. I Billie Lourd is been really good in everything that I've seen her in. I'd like to see more of Billie Lourd, and I hope that she's one of these people that is sort of like with the Lucasfilm sort of family. They like to keep people around when they use them a lot. I'd love to see more of her as any sort of character that she wants to do. Keep Connie, whatever her name is.
Cato Connix.
There you go, Connix.
I thought Connix was going to be a bigger part of this movie than she was, and I was kind of bummed that she wasn't, because it seemed like when the toys were coming out, it's hard to tell.
Like,
we do get at the very end, we get like the new trio, the surviving trio of Chewie and the droids, and then like the new side trio.
It'd be nice if she has a bigger role to play in future movies, for sure.
It would be nice. Me and Ralph have talked about wanting more movies going forward, like pushing the timeline forward. And she seems like a great character to push.
If Rogue Squadron ever actually happens, and having her be like a commander or something in that story would be fantastic. Yeah,
perfect. But it's the dialogue. It's Leia's dialogue that just feels a little stilted.
It's like that South Park. It's like that South Park where Chef returns.
Yeah,
and they're just splicing his old dialogue to say whatever they want him to say.
And I think there's problem with
rough.
it is my problem with it is because we're the types of fans who are reading all the behind the scenes stuff, because we knew that it's all stuff from The Force Awakens that they were using and they were pulling from. I watch it, and every line I can see what scene that was cut from, what alternate take that was, where in the movie that was originally, and it does pull me out a little bit. And it's
getting easier. It's getting easier and easier to watch with every viewing for me.
Yeah,
like I'm
I'd agree with that.
Starting to distance. I think what they did, I don't think they could have recast Leia.
No,
I mean, they did it in Obi-Wan, but that was a whole different story.
Yeah.
But
it would have been weird if Carrie Fisher had played the part in Obi-Wan, even if she was still alive and they had her play Leia. It would have been a little bit
10-year-old Leia played by Carrie Fisher.
Was that Little Man? That movie Little Man? Do that. But the thing is, a lot of people talk about Rose's treatment. I feel like with Dominic Monaghan, Rose, Kelly Marie Tran, and Snap Wexley and those, like, to have sort of familiar characters or some characters around Leia to kind of fill in the gaps in the conversation, I think was you had to do it. Like, you couldn't just have Leia just standing there on her own. So I think if you're going to have your main dudes go out and do their adventure, I think Rose was a good choice to have kind of there. I feel like her relationship with Finn does get severed in the movie, and at the end when they're riding horses on the Star Destroyer, like, it should be Rose should be in the mix a little bit more. But I understand why Rose was chosen to sort of be Leia's right hand.
These are all things that I feel like if I could have my way and this would have been split into two movies, I definitely think Rose could have been given a bigger role and more to do, especially in the next movie. I very much am sad that Rose got her part cut down, because I was a big Rose fan, and I think that's a very valid criticism of the film, is that Rose really got sidelined a lot, and it's unfortunate. And I don't know how much of it has to do with, because I know I from what I understand, I don't think she and Boyega got along very well on set, and so I think, and that could be like hearsay and speculation. Who knows? It's everyone's writing their behind the scenes fan fiction of what actually happened on these sets, but like, I don't know if that's part of why they didn't want to have them be in scenes a bunch together again, like they did in the last movie. I don't know, but I think Rose's sidelining for me is one of the biggest flaws in this movie. But I do think that her being with Leia is so tough, because they did the best they could with what was really an impossible situation.
Damned if they did, damned if they didn't. Totally.
I agree with you. The dialogue doesn't quite work. It kind of feels like Rey is a character in a video game talking to an NPC who only has like a certain set of dialogue trees they can go through no matter what's actually being said to them. And it's very awkward and doesn't quite work. But
also, she doesn't move around a lot. Leia's just kind of placed in the middle of a scene, and you could tell it just feels like the scene is built around her shot.
Yeah.
But
And
again,
what
you're-
line they had as well, like it was written that way. Yeah.
but if you're like a 10-year-old kid who's
You're not
not
gonna
on Twitter, who doesn't know this stuff, I don't
Exactly.
think you're going to know. I think they did a really good job. And her sacrifice to like give herself to the Force to help guide Ben.
She knew what she was
through,
doing.
I love that part.
through a vision of Han Solo, and then to stick around still in her physical form, using all of her whatever energy to help guide Ben until the end when he's finally redeemed and just kind of becomes one with the Force. Like, I think it was really well done.
Something that they go into in the novelization a little bit more than we don't really see on screen is that like saving herself in Last Jedi took a lot more out of her than we.
Oh yeah,
you know, she's been unwell since then. Like it
well,
really,
we saw what it did to Luke.
In
Last Jedi.
Yeah, exactly. And
but Pete, as you said, I'd completely forgotten that moment in the novelization. Yeah, it's that space walk that she did, like that kicked her ass. Like she's never been right since then. Like yeah.
But so it's not just like out of nowhere she's walking around and being like, okay, here we go. Like, all right, wait, hang on, time to die. Like, you know, it's just like she's been a little bit
fading,
completely, you know, barely keeping it together.
And she chooses her moment.
Her storyline where she still has Han Solo didn't want his medal for Yavin. That's not Han Solo, but she kept it as a memento of their sort of first day they met.
Yeah.
Right.
And she held on to that when she laid down to focus on Han Solo.
What they created. Like
yes, and it was able for her to sort of find him out in the Force and manifest him for Ben to see in that amazing scene. But then the added thing of once she's gone, Maz giving the medal to Chewie. And as people joke about that, I'm like, you don't understand. She was holding the medal. It's not some random medal she gave to Chewie.
Yeah.
And it's not just like, it's not giving the Chewie the medal that he deserved at the end of that. It's giving Chewie a piece of Han.
Yeah.
That's the symbolism. It's not he deserved a medal the whole time. Like, I think that's a big criticism I have of people's criticism of this film is that it's a lot of people see the stuff and they're like, well, they're just course correcting what Ryan did, or they're pandering to the fans, and there's this and there's that. It's like there are some things that I think are a little bit like Luke saying Jedi's weapons shouldn't be treated this way is maybe the one line that I'm like, yeah, all right. But
no, but that's literally I will fight that on you because I think people criticize that line unfairly because he's saying it with a smirk and a wink. He's calling himself out for having done it in the last film, and he's saying to her like, hey, this deserves better. Like he's saying, I cut myself off from the Force. I pulled myself out of this conflict and it was the wrong thing to do. And I don't want that path for you. Like I will say that for me, any criticism I have of this film almost ends once the lightsaber battle between Kylo and Rey begins on the old Death Star. I am on board. I am locked and loaded for the rest of the film, and that is a moment, especially that I feel like it's a lot of extremely unfair criticism. So,
no, that's a great point. Perfect.
I love that Luke. I love that Rey thought that Luke was going to be the spark to reignite the rebellion or the resistance or whatever in The Last Jedi. In this movie, she is literally lighting the way to Exegol for the resistance.
Yeah.
In Luke's X-Wing. And it's just this, it's like that kind of stuff you don't really think about because it's a dumb Star Wars movie, but at the same time, there is stuff under the surface. There is a symbolism of Luke Skywalker's X-Wing, his original X-Wing with Rey in it.
Yeah.
The old light of the galaxy and the new light of the galaxy, sending everybody just by flying to Exegol. I love it. It's so good, and
you have everything you need. Like all of that stuff. Like Luke's barely in this film, but it's fine. Like I think as this was coming out,
he's exactly in the movie at all. It's pretty great.
As this one was coming out, I think a lot of people were expecting or hoping, or again, expectations lead to disappointment. Like they don't have expectations, but because so many people were like, oh, he's going to be haunting Ben, he's going to be haunting Kylo Ren, like the whole movie is going to be that thorn in his side. It's like, that's not why he sacrificed himself. He sacrificed himself at the end because that's what needed to be done to give the resistance, to give Rey that next step, because he knew that he was done. He was over. Like, his time was over. It was up to that next generation. Yeah. And so to lose all three of the original trilogy, whether Carrie had survived or not, like, I think her dying when she did was kind of important, because it's about the next generation. It's not about these guys anymore. Like, it's about handing it over. And so Luke forward. Just be like that last little lesson, and it's the same as Yoda coming back, or the same as Obi-Wan coming back. For like, they're not there to teach. Ghost Yoda, Ghost Obi-Wan aren't teaching Luke. They come in to say one thing, or to remind them of one point that they probably already knew. Like, Rey knew she had the Wayfinder in that TIE fighter. Like, she didn't. It's a reminder. It's a hey, oh, have your tantrum. That's fine. Then go and do the job.
And I love that Luke lifts the X-wing out of the ocean. Like,
I've got that above my bed. I've got a lovely print of that above my bed. Like, it's
And Luke would never use the Force to torment
the...
Kylo. Like, Luke using the Force to torment Kylo. That's what Palpatine does. That is what the dark side does. Like, although it's wild. Yeah, sorry.
No, I just want to throw in there that knowing, like, how fun would it be to have, you know, Mark Hamill being like a great gazoo to Kylo Ren, just like showing up and be like, hey, dum dum, and like really just like messing with him the whole time.
That's a fun Lego Star Wars.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
Lego Star Wars episode about that. Fantastic. A thing that actually happens in a Star Wars movie. Like, everyone talks about the assassination of Luke Skywalker's character in Last Jedi, and
my favorite part of the movie.
But like, it's 100% like, this is continuing that. This is the Luke who threw his lightsaber away and wouldn't fight his father on the Death Star. Like, this is the guy who continually pushes the Force about healing and growth and things like that, and not about just like tearing things down. And I think that I understand the people wanted the through line of the be seeing you around kid and the wink, like that's a fun moment. But I don't think that Luke that we've ever met would use the Force, especially as a being of pure Force, to just annoy the crap out of his nephew.
But the double meaning of that, he could have meant like, I believe it. One day that you'll be redeemed and you'll become one with the Force, and he fades away. Like, they could be hanging out in Force Heaven. Like, they can be doing whatever they want to do. Like, like it's you know, you can imagine Ben, like Ghost Ben, getting to finally meet his granddad that he revered so much, and realizing that it was
I want to see that scene though.
Hang on though. It's hang on. I admired you when I thought you were Vader. Like, now I see that was wrong. And
now I think you're a bit whiny.
That, now I see that, like, it was the Anakin that I admired. Like, so
he's like, now that I watched the Clone Wars, I totally get who I should have been.
I saw the whole arc of it. Like,
love that. I love the Mortis arc especially.
That brings up a point. Have any of you guys read the abandoned script?
No.
Yeah. I got it.
I thumbed through it a little bit, but
same. I skimmed through it. I read through it, and I think it was when it was getting into like the Mortis stuff, and that I was like, I love that in the Clone Wars. I think it's a really good arc in the Clone Wars. I don't want that in this movie. It would have been way too much, like right at the end, and I think everyone who's like, oh no, they had such a better script with that. Bring back that script. It's like, you're deluding yourselves. Like, that would have lost more people than this. I think it's really easy to take an unproduced script and hold it up against a produced film and say like, this would have been better. But I think in some weird parallel universe where that movie got made, and somehow through some weird different type of fate or time, someone saw a treatment for what Rise of Skywalker was, I think the exact same conversation would be happening where someone's like, oh, there's a version where Palpatine was back and it turns out that Rey was his granddaughter, and like that's his whole thing. Like, I think it's really easy to romanticize a thing you can't physically see. I don't think it ultimately would have been better, and I think the Jurassic World movies prove that point to me over and over again. So that's my feeling on it. Plus, we got some lovely bits of concept art, and they can sit in a concept art book one day. Like, that'd be cool.
And they'll show up. They'll show up in a future thing.
And they can be reused, re-implemented, like all the Macquarie stuff that wasn't used. Perfect. Great.
Yeah. Just like Ventress's lightsaber becoming Darth Maul's lightsaber. Like, and then they had to find a way to make it canon so they could sell it in the park. But which I have, and I love it. But my favorite lightsaber that I own now. But still.
Ralph, you're about to say something.
I was going to say we're at over an hour already,
Oh, wow.
and there's I know it's been flying by. It's been the Rise of Skywalker of podcasts with all the information that we've been tossing around. There's a
15
couple
more,
things,
everybody.
just a couple things I want to bring up. First of all, maybe we can get through this real quick. Is the kiss? Thoughts on the kiss?
I honestly have no strong connection to it one way or the other. I'm a giant Rey fan. I'm a big Rey fan. Rey might be my favorite Star Wars character these days. It's up there between Rey, Ventress, and a few other people like that. And Ahsoka, obviously. But I think that my love of Rey is kind of detached from Kylo as a character. Like I understand there's a lot of people who that's very intertwined, and I respect that opinion. It's not for me. It's a thing that happens. It's emotional. It's in the moment. I feel like I like it that it gives enough so people who want to read the Reylo like connection to it can have it. I don't think it's so distinct that if you don't want to read it, it like forces it on you. So it happens and it moves on. And I think
they have a very
it's
strong bond. They have a very strong connection, and at that moment, like it's more of a thank you kiss. It's like a for luck, for hey, isn't it great that we survived at the end of Last Jedi between Finn and Rose? There's no real romantic connection there. Like, they're young, they're hot, they're flirty, fine.
But if you want to see a romantic connection, you can. I think it's enough that if you want to see it, it's 100%
it's the same at this. It's a height of emotion. Like, it's one of the most emotional. Well, it's going to be probably the most emotional moment for either of their lives. And bang, hey, isn't it great? And they were a dyad. People can make fun of the dyad thing. I think it's great. I really like the dyad. Like, so, like them just kissing at the end there, fine. I've got no problem with it. Like, it doesn't make or break the movie for me.
Yeah,
same. It just
It
seems
doesn't
like
ruin Star Wars.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it completely ruined Star Wars, but the movie, this
and my
particular-
childhood by extension,
by proxy,
but
yeah.
but yeah, it just seemed kind of like more or less organically grew out of the moment, and then
When
it was
I-
just kind of didn't. I could take it or leave it. I
remember seeing in the theater for the first time. There was a lot of squeals from the audience from younger folk.
Yeah,
when it happened, I'm like,
Good
this
squeals
is
or bad
nuts.
squeals.
Like good ones.
Treat.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, good for them. If they get a kick out of it, if they enjoy it, then yeah.
Is this a kissing film? Yeah, I think I think that's a lot. That speaks to the fact that Star Wars is not for one specific generation, and there are things that are for younger generation and things that are for older generation, and you have to kind of accept that, like, that's what's happening.
I think that's the biggest thing with this trilogy as well is the prequels were hated in their time. Like, and then you look at them now and kids these days, they love them. And so
and they loved them then. The kids who were growing up the prequels, they just weren't on the internet talking about it because they were like 8, you know? So
so I'm sure that the audience who love these at movie theaters and stuff will grow up and they'll love them, and then it'll all come back around. And then there'll be another set of movies for the current generation people to hate.
Yeah.
I think that's what I like about when I enjoy a movie like this. I'm like, good. I don't feel like a grown up yet. I feel like I'm still a kid and can enjoy this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Even Book of Boba Fett.
Finally, there's media that lets you feel like a kid again.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's like when I watch Pacific Rim and I'm like, I fucking love this movie. Like, and it's like, it's just
I watched that a couple weeks ago. It was so good.
Big, great, dumb movie. It's brilliant. But yeah, it makes you feel like a kid again. It's exactly that.
Yeah. Any thoughts on the ending of this movie? I think the final shot of the film is one of my favorites.
I have a painting of it on my wall over here, so I think you can probably guess how I feel about it.
Hate it.
I'm like, every day I look at it to piss myself off so I can go off into the world. I'm like, this movie, bro. I wrote about it for Nerdist, so I think my thoughts are pretty well established on this. But Rey's found family arc in these movies means a ton to me, and I think that's a big reason why I connect so deeply with it, and it's why I don't personally agree that the Palpatine stuff undoes what's set up in Last Jedi. I don't think it does. I don't think the Palpatine I don't think Rey Palpatine undoes what's powerful about Rey Nobody. I respect people who feel differently, and you are allowed to feel the way you do about it. It's an emotional response. I don't, and in fact it only heightens it for me. And for this to be like at the end, this character who grew up on this world waiting for her family to come back to her, instead going out and finding this family that like matters to her and like gave her a place, and then to give them like a burial and like take this home, and to bring the entire trilogy as well back to where it started. There's just, it's extremely powerful to me, and I love it so much. Like even the Palpatine thing, I think works so well for me thematically for the three trilogy, because you have this guy who's been the villain for this entire saga for at least two, especially two of the trilogies, and then you have the Skywalker saga, and you got this person who is part of this bloodline, and the fact that these two things can come together in such a loving and like peaceful way at the end is like such a message about like how you can overcome generational trauma and generational like battles and conflicts, and like learn through like empathy and understanding to be on the same page, and to be like, you don't have to be attached to the sins of your past if you're willing to work through them. There's a whole lot there, which we could probably spend a whole other hour and 10 minutes talking about. So that's fine. But that scene for me works so well. And I think some people seem to think that she's just going to stay on Tatooine in this one spot for like, people are like, well, now she's all alone again. I'm like, for this like moment, she went off to have a funeral, basically.
She's going.
The movie ends with her walking away from that place.
Yeah. But
where's she going?
I'm a giant fan of it.
Yeah, there was a couple scenes in here watching this time that I really gravitated towards. On Pasana, when the alien asks her about her family and she says she doesn't know. Like, that's such a great scene. There's another scene where she gets mad and she says, everyone's telling me who I am.
Yes.
And it's not up to them.
And it's to the person she's closest with as well. It's to Finn, isn't it? It's like, yeah. And so for the ending of her just, I mean, I feel like she's not taking on the name Skywalker. I mean, of course, this lightsaber that I got is called the Rey Skywalker lightsaber. But I feel like it's not so much it's an answer
becoming a Skywalker. It's an ideal.
Yeah.
It's an answer to that. Like, she's not going to go around signing Rey Skywalker on every check that she writes, but like it's an answer to, I'd be honored to know your family name. And it's like, sure, if I've got to give one, I'll give Skywalker. But like, most of the time I think she's Rey. She's just Rey. And I think that's fine. But like, I mean, I don't think I could definitely not say it any better than Riley said. So I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
I agree. I didn't have anything useful to add other than, I like it fine. And I agree with all your points.
And plus, I mean, to end where we began 46 years ago, like, it's this whole movie, I feel, is a celebration in the spirit of, George Lucas. Everything was very fast. Everything was intense. and we got to spend time with everybody. We even got a way too short split second shot of Wedge, and he should have been in an X-wing, but I the fact that I saw him
and his adopted son died like seconds earlier, but that's fine. Like they'll deal with that, I'm sure. In like Rogue
there was
Squadron
one the first
novel.
time I saw it, the first time I saw this movie in the theater, there was one grown man in the theater that squealed.
That was me. In my theater, that was me.
I like that you were at Ralph's theater and you were behind
he could
him.
hear me from
like
England
you were there,
to Anaheim.
Like, together.
I felt the presence.
I honestly I sometimes hokiness and sap will really get me. And the moment of Lando coming over the radio and saying, "But you're not alone, Poe," and all those ships arriving,
and the music swells.
It's so manipulative. It's so forced, and I loved every second of it. I'm like,
totally,
yes, yes. I was in the
fist pump.
theater, excited. Yeah,
absolutely.
The split second you get of John Williams on screen, you're like, they dressed up this poor dude in this goofy getup, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Did you notice a split second before we got our split second of John Williams? We got a split second of our favorite character from Andor.
The Creeping Kid?
Creeping Kid is in there just before John Williams. He doesn't have the hands, but he's there. He sat at a table just as they walked past.
I didn't notice.
Yeah. So it goes from like Kevin Smith that we don't see because he's got a hood up and a big coat, to Creeping Kid to John Williams. It's like, what a trilogy right there. Like, what a trio.
It makes me happy, and I like the story of John Williams' wife telling him that he has to do it. Like, you got to do it. He's like, I don't know, but if I'm going to do it. And I'm so glad he did. I'm
I'll
so glad he
take that.
did.
Just get in there once.
And
I'm
then
a
we
big
got the
fan-
shot, like that one shot. Like it's perfect.
Guy's been the
I'm a big
soundtrack of an entire generation of movies. Like it's good to have him get this like really nice like swan song moment of it. Yeah.
He has a theme in this that's titled "The Rise of Skywalker." It's a new theme that shows up in this movie that I absolutely adore. It might be like one of my top 4 favorite Star Wars cues.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful piece of music. And if you're on Instagram, it's the music that I played for the post for this episode. And I highly recommend you check it out.
His Ray theme is one of my favorite pieces of music he's ever done. Like I can't tell you how often I just throw that on because it just makes me feel
did.
good.
That is like top 3 for me. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
adore the Ray theme. Yeah.
Have you ever heard
Did
the country western remix of it? It's, not country western. There's like a not country western, but like Sergio Leone spaghetti western.
Oh no!
It's on YouTube. Like look up spaghetti western Ray theme. It will blow your mind. It's so good.
Awesome. I mean, that and
Sounds
like
amazing.
Flute Loop by Beastie Boys is such a great track anyway. So like it's so similar. It's got such a theme
Totally.
from that. So like it's Ray theme's perfect.
Yeah, there's one of those documentaries where Daisy Ridley's showing up to
Dizzy?
the scoring session. Was
Dizzy
that-
Ridley.
You said I think
Daisy?
you said Dizzy. I think
Is
you
it
said
Daisy?
Dizzy Dizzy Ridley. Daisy.
Trumpeter on the soundtrack. Daisy Ridley, where he
Yes,
gives
it's
her
Dizzy
the sheet
Jazz
music.
Ridley.
Oh yeah.
But she's there for the scoring session, and he gives her the sheet music for Ray's theme and signs
Ah,
and gives it
yeah.
to her.
Oh,
And they're like crying and stuff. I think he might be the biggest Ray fan out there. I think he said that he doesn't want anybody else doing a score for Ray. Like he
Wow.
wants, yeah.
Is that why he's come out of retirement? Because they know that she's coming back. Or,
Maybe.
like his
Don't get my
retirement,
hopes
they
up.
never really entered. It
don't
was
get
like-
my hopes up.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see.
Episode 10.
It's
I'd
a
be
couple
good
of
with
couple of
episode
months
10.
until Celebration. We'll see if anyone makes a surprise appearance.
Right.
This made me
Yeah.
miss the opening crawl and going to see a Star Wars at the theater and stuff. So hopefully it's not too long, because I kind of like the fact that Rogue One went away from that and the TV shows don't have the crawl and Solo didn't have the crawl. But now I'm like, I kind of miss it, because I feel like Star Wars should be spread out. And I love that we get all the Disney Plus content, but I'm ready to get a trailer for a movie that I get to go see in the theater. And that'll give Pete another season of his show, which I'm you guys probably worked it out. I don't know what's happening with Star Wars Minute.
I mean, I
But
think I
this
said
is
it
the
when
last
this
film.
film when this film came out. I think at the time we were still expecting another film in like 2 or 3 years time after that.
Yeah.
And I think I'd done the math that I'd worked out that by the time you guys got through this one, you'd have a little bit of a break. You'd have time to have a little bit of a break. And I was like, oh, I'm sad that we won't have a Star Wars movie for a couple of years, but I'm really happy for you guys that you can have a little bit of a break.
Finally, we'll be free. But
yeah. For
we
now.
have ideas. I don't know. We'll kicking around ideas. We're not sure yet.
But Star Wars will always be around. They'll always be like Mandalorian, I'm guessing. Equivalent shows.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're gonna keep doing stuff, and then we'll see what we do for
Right.
our main.
And have you
deal.
guys finished up the James Bond series on your Patreon?
Yeah, we did that a while.
You
That
did
was
the note, but
last
you did No
summer.
Time to Die. You did No Time to Die.
Oh yeah. We finally did that at the end of Solo, Alex. Once it popped up on streaming something.
Okay,
I think we
need to-
did. Well, no,
Well-
now I'm second guessing it. I think Alex watched it, and I think we talked. I know I saw it, in the theater, but I don't. I gotta go back and look.
But everyone
Well,
should check out Star Wars Minute for sure.
That's it. Super Hans said here he feels like this podcast could have had an episode 2 where we could dive into each scene.
Good news.
Pete's making that
Tell you where
podcast right
you
now.
can go and check that out. Yeah, Star Wars Minute.
So for those of you that don't know, Star Wars Minute covers every single minute of Star Wars per episode. So episode 1 of your show was the opening minute of Star Wars, and
Right.
you have gone through all 10 movies so far. Is there 11 total?
11?
And
11
you're
total.
now in the middle
11,
of
yeah.
We're
of
we're
doing,
about to our next season is going to be the Rise of Skywalker. So we've done all the other movies.
Roughly how
one
many
episode
episodes do
for
you have?
each.
2000?
1600 or 1800. I don't know. I should know that. Maybe if I click on my computer, I can tell you.
Well, you also have to factor in all the bonus episodes you've done, all the like weekend ones and things like that.
Yeah.
There's so many Mayo casts.
Oh, weekend ones don't count on the feed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've done hundreds of those too. Yeah, I'm trying to log in and see how many episodes have I? 1,400 published episodes. Just purely as that's almost purely just minute by minute.
That's the regular
minute.
episodes, yeah.
Yeah, regular episodes.
And you've launched an entire genre of podcasts as well, so there's something to be said for it.
Yeah, we helped foster a weird little subgenre, which is nice.
It's great.
I was this close to starting my own.
Same.
I had splits clipped. I had clips split out. I was ready to go for Kentucky Fried Minute, which was going to do the Kentucky Fried Movie minute by minute. I was like, I had domain names. And I was like, what am I doing? I have too many. I do not want to go down this rabbit hole.
I was just about to start the before minute when someone else jumped in, and I was like, well, all right, they've got it. It gives me the freedom of not having to do that with the before movies, but yeah.
Yeah, every once in a while there's a relief like that where it's like I feel like I need to do this.
Should be
Somebody
done,
did
should
it.
be
Oh,
done.
good.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you mean like before sunrise and before? I can't imagine a more grueling set of movies.
That was why I was released.
But spending
Oh
my gosh, those movies are. I mean, I love those movies, but
Yeah.
wow, what a dreary way to spend 5 or 6 years of your life. like the only scene that I would be enjoying is the last moment of before sunrise or before sunset. Baby, you're gonna miss that plane moment. Like that'd be the only like analyzing that minute by minute.
I mean, and the last one, oof, yeah, that would have been hard work.
I actually haven't seen the last one, so I probably shouldn't
it's so
comment.
good.
But
It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never seen any.
yeah.
And neither have I. Sorry.
I might have thought about doing the vacation movies, but then I rewatched the vacation movies, and I'm pretty good on that. Not doing that.
Yeah.
I heard
Those
somebody did
can stay
the
in my nostalgia.
somebody was doing the Christmas one, Christmas Vacation, but like not. It wasn't minute. It was. I forgot the breakdown of it because I also haven't seen that. But
That one I watch every year, Christmas, and that one I think holds up. The other ones can be a little bit rough to get through.
yeah.
That one's I had never seen until I met my wife, 99. And so we watch it every year. And this year I got her some See's candy and configured it in the shape of the box that Clark's boss gets for Christmas, that L shape. So I recreated one of those and gave that to her as a
that's
gift.
cool.
And I think I'm going to do that every year from now on, but make it a different thing every time. So it's the same shape.
No, you should you should hide. You should shove the gift in like an attic and let it collect dust for a while, and then find it like it's an old gift that's been lost to time.
We talked about Star Wars Minute and where everyone can
Yeah, we
find
can probably
Pete.
wrap
But Riley, tell people where they can find you and where they can read some of your work.
I actually have 3, as we joked about earlier. I have 3 Star Wars books that are available from Insight Editions. There is Exploring Tatooine, an illustrated guide, which I could hold up, but it's probably behind me, behind this screen.
Join. We had Riley on before on a Data Link episode discussing that book. Yeah. So if you want to know more about that, 100% check out that episode too.
That was probably the most significant of the books that I wrote, but the other 2 were Treasures from Batuu. It's a Galaxy's Edge book. It's mostly a bunch of little toys and knickknacks for kids to play with, but I got to describe all the little sections of Galaxy's Edge, which is the last place that I saw Pete in person, which was on Life Day there.
That's true. Yeah, we went to Life Day.
Yeah, and speaking of Life Day,
I've been to Life Day with Pete.
Yeah, there we go. I have a Life Day pop-up calendar that is a little Life Day tree that pops up, and then each of the little doors is a different ornament that hangs on the calendar. So it's actually on the Worcester tree. So it's actually a pretty cool little advent calendar because it's one that when you're done with it, you can put it away and fold it up and put it on your shelf and then open it again next year and make it a decoration. And there's a little booklet inside of it that I wrote that is talking about Life Day, and then it also kind of summarizes a lot of the Life Day content that came out in 2021, the Life Day treasury, the Life Day comic books and things like that. So it's fun.
Love it. We're big fans of Life Day over here, so it's always good. More Life Day stuff.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
It's crazy. It's
The
crazy
park-
that it's becoming a thing.
The way the park did it was really interesting because a lot of what was happening in the park wasn't really done by the park. It was weird to be in a theme park where
Mhm.
merchandise is available, but be doing something that was so incredibly fan run and organized.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's like a guy who handed out
We-
like Christmas carols that have been rewritten to be Star Wars jokes and things like that. And
Right.
it's also funny because like I'm not famous, but like it was funny to walk around as someone who, if people in the group knew that I had written books about Life Day, probably would have been really excited that I was there.
Yeah.
But
Like official
also
books
I'm
about
not.
Life Day.
Yeah. But I'm also like not recognizable, and also I have way too much self insecurity to be like, I wrote a book, and like, so it was just funny to walk around people that probably would have been like really excited that I was there, but also be completely anonymous and like. And
That's
maybe
the dream, right? Like, I feel like if you talk
Yeah.
to most people like that, that's what they'd like.
it is, but there's also that brief moment of like, oh, I kind of wish that people
guys.
recognize me, and
Yeah.
I thought of me as a star. But I did have a great moment before that when I was in Galaxy's Edge, where I was carrying my second book, the Batu book, and I went with friends, and I took a photo of it in line for Rise of the Resistance, and when I was on the Star Destroyer, I have a photo of me holding up in front of all the troopers behind me.
Nice.
And then I was walking around the park, and the walk around troopers walked up to me, and they did the "we need to see your identification," and I did the "you don't need to see my identification," and then they got in my face like they have a pre-recorded response like, now I really want to see your ID. So in a moment of thought, I pulled the book out and I held it up like, oh, I'm a writer and I'm exploring this planet to write about it. And they grabbed the book out of my hand and were like showing it to their handler and like pointing their guns at it and like looking at it, and my friend got all these like completely unplanned but perfect promo photos for me of stormtroopers analyzing my book in
awesome.
Batu. It was great.
Nice.
We before the pandemic, me and Pete were like, hey, I said I can get you into Disneyland, let's go to Disneyland. I had the ability to get his family in, and we're like, we'll pick a day, and it was around Life Day, so I said, I just might as well do Life Day because Galaxy's Edge just opened, and I'm like, let's go look at Star Wars on Life Day. How fun will that be? And then we stumbled upon that fan event.
Yeah.
And we're like, this is kind of amazing. Like, and while we're standing there, like, there was like a security guard and a Disney suit, and like they had gathered a couple of crowd control people and just sat back and watched, and I listened to their conversation about, they're like, I don't know what it is, it's some Star Wars thing. And then
They're like panicking. They're like, we didn't do this. How do we?
And they were like, they're not getting in the way, so I guess just let it happen.
And was it 2 years later that they had merch for it? Like,
Yeah.
or was it?
Yeah.
It would have been a year later, but something
Yeah,
happened.
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
it was a thing.
but
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
hazy.
Yeah,
in
but this
between.
year
But-
they even brought Chewbacca out, and Chewbacca like was like posing
Well-
for people with photos and stuff like they had him
Yeah.
go up on the rock and like do like a speech as Chewbacca, which was great. Like,
That's awesome.
When we were there the first year, Chewbacca stumbled upon us and just decided to walk in the middle of the crowd, and somebody handed him a homemade orb, and he held it up, and it was like
yeah,
Perfect.
now they
a
bring it for him
bunch
every
of
year.
4-year-olds having the moment of their life. And so now it's kind of like they know it's happening, but they still let the fans do it.
Yeah. I think
Again,
they're,
if you
they're
want to
trying to
see
let
this,
them do as much as possible, but also
as long
capitalize.
as they're
Let's
not
sell
in the way.
merch and
course.
Yeah.
let them do what they can. We'll
Yeah.
support them, but
We'll
not
sell
do too
red
much
robes.
for it.
Yeah. They basically sold Snuggies that are the red Life Day robes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of people wearing them because it's right there in the park. So
Yeah.
which in
And it got a little chilly.
2022, like, who would have thought
Yeah.
that Disney would be selling Life Day robes?
Embracing it,
It does
yeah.
not compute.
well,
at
that's
all,
the thing. Like
especially since
2021,
it's
they
not on-
realized like, oh, even if we don't make this special canon, we can definitely merchandise this holiday, and that became a like. I
Yeah.
mean, Disney, if it, people like to make money, and if they have an option to do it, they're going to do it.
Every
so.
other land is themed for Christmas.
Yeah.
Like,
Do it.
yeah.
Embrace it. It's fine. It's great.
Yeah.
And again,
I-
like, if you want to check that out, I have an episode from Life Day, not this past year, but the year before, where I was like fully on board. I got special drinks and merch and showed what the fan event is kind of like. And I love that video. It makes me so happy every time I watch it. I didn't go to Life Day last year because I'm kind of done with Disney, but
Understand.
I highly recommend if you make it to Batu on Life Day, you're going to have a good time.
Yeah. I liked
Uh,
it better on Life Day than I did on Star Wars Day. I was in the park on Star Wars Day. Now, Star Wars Night was great. Like when the park
May
closed.
25th.
Yeah, or no, May 5th. May 4th. Sorry, on May 4th. I unfortunately didn't make it down for May 25th, which is probably good because somewhere along the line of celebration I got COVID. So it's probably good that I wasn't at the park that day because I don't know when I got it. But on May 4th when I was there, Galaxy's Edge was unfun to be in because it was so crowded. Like the lines to get into.
That's why you gotta go on
Orthodox.
Orthodox Star Wars Day, May 25th. I'm sure it's a lot better.
Yeah, unless
That's
Celebration is happening in Anaheim that weekend. Yes.
Yeah. Well, all of these have been such great segues. Celebration is coming up. I'm going to be at Celebration. Also, unrecognizable, unfamous person, but I will be wearing this. We've got these t-shirts and other t-shirts available.
I don't even have one. I made one.
Yeah, I know. Ralph didn't know that I'd got this. I ordered this a couple of weeks ago from our web store. And
It's a fake name?
No, I think I used mine.
They better notify me about.
I was going to say, you better get some money up for this.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was ordered. I'm going to be wearing these. So if you are coming, buy a t-shirt. Come and say hello. If not, just come and say hi to me if you see me at Celebration. That'd be fun. And then there will be also a special video that I shoot there, talking about all the fun stuff that I am up to. Looking forward to it. They seem to be announcing more and more big guests. Normally when they've done it in the UK in the past, it's been a slightly smaller show, but doesn't seem to be that way this year. It seems to be a full big one.
And then next week we have another Data Link episode with another author, and this is going to be really interesting. Pete, you might be interested in this as well.
Yeah, Pete, if you had to say, what's your favorite line from Rogue One?
Wait, I feel like this is a setup here. It's my favorite line from Rogue One.
All right, a line, an oft-quoted line from Rogue One. It's what is she proposing?
Right, yeah.
Let the girl speak. We've got that guy, Samuel Victor, from Rogue One. He's in the background. He was an extra in Rogue One. He's going to be on live action Star Wars next Wednesday. Back at our regular time. He's written a book, or he's in the process of writing a book about inclusion and diversity and getting people in, not just in Star Wars, but just in the entertainment industry in general. And he's going to come on and he's going to talk about that. He's going to talk about his experience in Rogue One and how that completely ad-libbed line has become a little bit of a sort of one of those mini internet Star Wars sensations that we all love. Oft quoted the "What is she proposing?"
I'm glad you didn't ask me my favorite line because I would have said "Borgullet knows," and that wouldn't have been a very good book at all.
Yeah, that's probably going to be the sequel book. Is Borgullet? Yeah,
right.
I want a book Borgullet.
Borgullet's my favorite.
If we get Borgullet on the show,
be a rough
I'm
episode
excited
because
for that.
it would just, you wouldn't be speaking out loud. It would be draining your secrets out of your brains. So.
yeah.
Right. For the viewers, it would just be you two just kind of like, freaking out.
But Forrest Whitaker would be in the corner yelling things, and that would make the show more fun to listen to.
Oh my god!
Would be
Can you
pretty fun,
imagine that?
Oh.
Can you imagine if it was like me and James, Forrest Whitaker, Borgullet, and just tentacles in their head and him just yelling?
I'd love it.
Amazing.
I love Borgullets. I love
and then
Saul so much.
So that's a Data Link episode. It'll be exclusively on our YouTube channel. For those of you listening to this on the audio version, go subscribe.
Yeah.
And then we'll see you in 2 weeks on the regular feed.
Mandalorian's back.
New Star Wars.
Yeah, there's new Star Wars.
Mandalorian's
Star
back.
Wars.
Yeah.
Which means I'm getting up at 5:30 in the morning watching a Star Wars, and we'll be up and at
Absolute
it at
trooper.
7:30 a.m.
You're going to be getting up early. It's going to be one of those episodes that I do from the Atlantic Ocean somewhere. Like I'm going to be it's going to be a wild time, but I'm excited. They just released the scene just before we went live today, like a short little scene, and little Grogu's he's being cute again. So we're going to get to see the Grogu is cute show, which is always fun. It's always fun.
Yeah,
That's what it's called.
yeah.
In our
All right.
If you're going to be in the Atlantic Ocean, you could be like Leia and practice your mid-Atlantic accent. So that'll be perfect.
Spot on. Thank you for joining us, Riley, Pete. It's always a pleasure to have you guys on.
Thanks for having us.
Of course.
And yeah, Ralph, if we don't have anything else, don't give in to hate.
Celebrate the love.
Punch it.